Hello there, my friends. Welcome to episode 279 of Stand Up. Joining me today, Jared Yates Sexton and Wajahat. We get back together again and have a great conversation. I'm Pete Dominic. Time to stand up with me right now. Hello, my friends. Thank you very much for joining me today on the show. This is the fourth show of the week, of course. I'm taking the week off from doing the news and really from paying too close attention to the news, although I'm pretty excited about what is happening in climate news, hearing from Gina McCarthy and John Kerry and President Biden, and then a whole bunch of activists, organizers, and journalists who cover the climate crisis. I couldn't get away from that on Thursday, and it made me think that maybe next week it's all I'll talk about with my guests on a wide-ranging series of shows and conversations from the history of the environmental movement all the way up until where we are at now with the climate crisis. I think that might be a pretty good idea. What do you think of that? Let me know. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com, as many of you have this week. I really appreciate all of your advice and insight into the podcast, the show, the community, and giving me your ideas with what I want to do with it. Spending this week thinking a lot about where to go and how to create and what to do. So taking time off the news segments that I open with every week. And I know some of you have said you missed them, and I'm planning on getting back to them next week and doing the normal format. But I'm really enjoying this time to spend in my brain thinking about other stuff and how it can be here from the shed where I love to work. I actually tweeted today, I think the best thing I've done for myself in my work is turning my backyard garden shed into a studio. If you want me to talk about it for hours, just say, "Hi, Pete," and I definitely will. It's a total life-changing situation, and I could not have done that without the support of over 800 paying subscribers. If you're not one, I'd love to have you sign up and join us in our amazing growing community. Tonight, we will meet every Thursday at 8 to hang out, do a little happy hour hangout, maybe welcome a guest or two. Always love to hear from you during those hangouts about what's going on. It's a really fun part of being a member of the stand-up community. All right, I'm going to get right to my guests on today's episode. Great conversation with Jared Yates Sexton and Wajahat. Back in August, we did this for the first time. It was episode 165, and you can definitely go back and listen to that. And I'd love to do more of it with these guys. Had a great conversation with them. But before we begin, I got to tell you that today's show is brought to you by GiveWell, givewell.org. There are hundreds of thousands of nonprofits around the world, of course, in the United States of America. So many that you know about, and of course, many that you don't. But for more than 10 years, GiveWell.org has been helping donors find the charities and projects that help save and improve lives the most per dollar. And here's how. GiveWell spends more than 20,000 hours a year researching charitable organizations, and they handpick a few of the highest impact evidence-based charities. I've been working with my friends at GiveWell for several years now, ever since I interviewed Peter Singer back in my old show, who talked about effective altruism and taught me about this moral philosophy that I think has been a guiding philosophy in so many ways over the years. Back at the beginning of December, in episode 240, I interviewed Dr. Neil Buddy Shah of GiveWell, and I highly recommend you listen to that conversation because we learned so much more about the organization and their guiding principles and how they do their work and why they do their work. And so far, based on the campaign that I've been working with them on, we have saved several lives already. You did that with your generous donations. But today I'm asking you to do something different, take it up a notch, and sign up for a recurring donation to GiveWell. GiveWell.org/standup. All the amazing research that GiveWell does is available publicly on their website, and more importantly, GiveWell doesn't take any fees. All of your tax-deductible donations are given to the actual charity that you choose. And since 2010, GiveWell has directed more than 50,000 donors to over $500 million to the most effective charities. And these donations will save lives and improve lives the most. So go right now to GiveWell.org/standup Stand Up. Anybody, any listener of mine who starts a new monthly donation by the end of February will have their first matched up to $250. Your first month donation matched up to $250. When you make a monthly donation, you commit to helping others all year by giving the most cost-effective charities GiveWell has found. Every month, you'll automatically work towards saving lives, preventing disease, and helping those in extreme poverty. That's givewell.org/stand-up. Select podcast and stand up at checkout. GiveWell does the work, researches the programs that actually solve problem. Malaria, by providing anti-malarial bed nets and seasonal medicine treatments that help prevent and treat malaria, a disease that kills almost 500,000 children less than 5 years old each year, sickens many, many more. Vitamin A supplementation. They provide children vulnerable to vitamin A deficiencies with vital supplements. Vitamin A deficiency, the leading cause of childhood blindness and leads to over 100,000 deaths per year. Things like deworming. Parasitic worms harm millions of people globally, but to children, they are really horrific. Untreated, they cause suffering and can hurt healthy brain development. That's what your donation will go to solve, improving and saving those lives. So sign up right now for a recurring donation. Go to givewell.org/stand-up and select podcast and then stand up at checkout so that we get the credit and can keep promoting this amazing organization and doing this great podcast. Givewell.org/stand-up now. My guests joining me today, very excited. Jared Yates Sexton, of course, is an author and a professor. He wrote an awesome book that everybody should read if you haven't gotten it yet. It's called American Rule: How a Nation Conquered the World but Failed Its People. And Wajahat Ali is a journalist, writer, lawyer, award-winning playwright, TV host, and he's got a new book coming out as well. He's just turned in the manuscript for. Great guy. Love talking to them separately, and it was amazing to be in conversation with them both together. Follow Jared on Twitter, by the way, at JY Sexton, and follow Waj at Wajahat Ali, and of course listen to Jared's podcast, the Muckrake Podcast. And here it is, the three of us together, starting with a conversation about nudism, because just before they joined me on the Zoom link, longtime listener and subscriber Mark Lawler, my friend Mark, texted me and said, where are you on nudism? Forced me to think about that. And then right after I responded to him, Jared popped up and then Waj popped up, and so I asked them the same question, and that's where we started. You hear pretty much the whole conversation from the moment they punched into the Zoom to the moment we all punched out. And you gotta stay for the end, because that's when Waj's daughter comes in and joins us for a moment. It's worth it. So thanks very much for listening, for supporting me. I hope to see you tonight at the Hangout. Here now, my conversation with Jared Yates Sexton, Wajahat Ali. It's Jared Wajaradenik. I don't know, but this band needs a name.
Waj.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, buddy?
Waj! Oh, look at guy. He got a haircut. He got a real haircut. He got a real close crop for his new DMV picture.
Right.
You look good.
I don't think so.
I did it myself. It's called the number one, which is just take the razor and go.
Hey, I have a question. If you have such good hair, why do that with it?
I don't think I have any good hair anymore, man. I think, look, it's I'm losing it.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, seriously.
Stop.
Who are you talking to?
Stop.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Yeah, I'm talking to Lex.
Who are we dealing with here? What are we doing?
Oh, it's over for all of us. It's okay.
Be like me hanging around with a bunch of Muslims and going, you know what? You don't know my struggle.
You don't know the struggle of the bald white man in America.
Amen.
Well,
if only we had follicle power, we too would be powerful.
If only we had representation in the media, and all we have is Pete. That's it.
No, you've got Smirkanish.
You have Smirkanish. I went straight to Smirkanish. Who's a bald white man? Smirkanish.
That's right. It's Smirkanish. That's true.
Who else is there? Howie Mandel.
I know all the bald whites. We have meetings.
Yeah, Steve Schmidt. He's a powerful bald white.
Oh, Larry David. Larry David is like at the top of the chain.
Larry David. Yeah, that's true.
Larry David.
Hey, when you look at Steve Schmidt and Larry David, you're like, me too one day. It's like when I look at Sanjay Gupta, I'm like, there's still hope.
I want to start with a really important question. I just got texted by a smart friend. What's your opinion, Waj, on nudism and nudists?
Oh, interesting. I haven't spent too much of my life thinking about nudism or nudists. But, well, actually, no, I'll take it back. When I was at UC Berkeley, there was this guy who got national attention who used to come to class in school nude. That was just, I don't know if he was doing a particular protest. I necessarily never saw him in his junk, but he became like a curiosity. And mostly people were just like, man, I had to sit in the seat after he sat there. And I just hope he washed his butt. So my thing is, if you're a clean nudist,
right,
that's all that matters for me.
Jared Yates Sexton, do you know any nudists? Have you ever participated? Are you a nudist?
I'm from rural Indiana. We're offended at the very thought that anybody would live as a nudist. We're so buttoned up that I feel like I actually need to go talk to a preacher right now.
You guys don't even go nude.
Yeah,
in your own home.
Pee-pee holes. They use pee-pee holes when they make love.
Well, the answer is anybody who participates in nudism in any serious way is almost never in any kind of decent shape.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you sure? That's the
answer.
Data?
And they're all weird. It's a weird thing. It's a weird choice. And weird isn't bad. But who's doing this? Is anybody doing this that and is successful by any metric? Do we know anybody that is super successful? Is also, you know what? I'm a nude on the weekends. I go to a thing. We meet up. What is it about? All right. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I wanted to start with.
Yo, well, can I ask you this question? If you guys, okay, so I one time went to this resort. It was on the Pacific Highway. I'm forgetting the name of it. It's where the season finale of Mad Men was held. Remember, he goes to that. So I'm forgetting the name. I went there, I got invited, and they have these hot springs. And I'm such a square son of like Pakistani immigrants. Like we don't even look at ourselves nude, right? Right. So everyone goes nude into these hot springs. I'm the one loser wearing like swimming trunks. Are you guys comfortable in that scenario where everyone's nude?
I've done that.
To go to a hot spring.
I've done that.
If you are suggesting that we get an Airbnb sometime in the very near future, if that's what this is about, I'm willing to put down the money today.
Oh, now I know that Pete's going to be the nude guy. That one nude guy. That'll be Pete.
Yeah, no, I've known to go nude a number of times as a bit, really, to make people laugh. But I'm that guy. But yeah, that's why I brought us here together. There's a new show I'm pitching. It's the three of us. It's called Jared Nick, and we're naked. In a hot tub talking about fascism and white supremacy. So I think it's going to be a hit.
It will literally radicalize the nation.
Well, speaking of a radicalized nation, gentlemen, I'm very happy to have you guys both here again. We did this like 6 months ago, and I've been really excited ever since, wanting to do it again. And there's a lot of things that I want to toss around and discuss with both of you. But first, I just want to talk about kind of, I feel like, what's good. And what's good is the last week. The last week, there's been a major difference in kind of tone and in our culture to some extent, because not only is Donald Trump gone, I think that's super important, but I think what's even more important, not more important that he's not president, but that he's not on Twitter and tweeting or on any social media platform. And the question is, how come this wasn't done earlier? Jared, what does it mean that he cannot tweet, that we're not hearing him scream into the night?
It wasn't done earlier because of money. I mean, the social media companies juiced him for every last little bit of profit that they could. And then like a week or a couple of days before he left office, they're like, this is too far. He has to go. So they got all the juice that they needed out of it, and they built their entire platforms. They turned themselves into absolute necessities in the political and journalistic sphere, and they got rid of them. But that being said, the vacuous emptiness that was Trump, that now is just out there in the world, is kind of beautiful. It's like the Star Baby in 2001. I just kind of stare at it all day, because the amazing thing about Trump in all of this is he didn't want to be president of the United States. He didn't like the job. He liked all the pomp and circumstance and hail to the chief and people saying Mr. President and people asking his opinion. He didn't like the work. He didn't like going to the meetings. He didn't like actually doing things, which is why he made a pretty incredible front man for a lot of people to deregulate and lead to, profit and fascism and white supremacy. But what turned out was, I think even Trump is actually a little relieved that he can stop doing it. And he could, I don't know, start a vlog or something like that. But now he's just going to his golf course and playing. And in truth, it's like even Donald Trump needed a vacation from Donald Trump.
Waj, what does it mean that he can't tweet? Why wasn't it done earlier?
Yeah, well, I remember I used to work with Facebook in the private sector right before Donald Trump was elected. And specifically what we were trying to do is go around the world doing these hackathons to like empower young change agents to use Facebook and media to basically combat discrimination that was caused in part by Facebook, right? And we did really good work. And I remember the budget for the work that we were doing was cut right when Trump won, because they told me that we don't think that this venture aligns with the Trump agenda. Okay, so they shift according to who's in power. This includes Facebook, this includes Twitter, big tech. Let's not forget, remember they all had that big meeting of the wizards where he invited them around the round table and he called Tim Cook, Tim Apple several times.
That's right.
Right. And all of them were sitting there proud to be part of the business council, the same man who called Mexicans rapists and criminals and ran on the Muslim ban. And he repeatedly violated their terms and conditions for 5 years. And as Jared accurately said, it was only when literally it cost them nothing because he lost, and it was clear that he lost, that they said, now we're going to be the good guys, and now we're going to implement our own terms and conditions against him. And the reason why they're not heroes is because by not deplatforming him earlier, what was the cost to the rest of us? Yep. The cost to democracy, the cost to truth, the cost to American society, the cost of those 5 lives that were lost on January 6th. And they did a 1-week audit of life post-Trump deplatformed, and they saw that misinformation went down 70% because the lead propagandist of hate and disinformation, Donald Trump, was deplatformed. So deplatforming works. It worked with Milo Yiannopoulos. The deplatform, we rarely talk about him. But at the end of the day, Jared's right. Money, and I will also say power. And the final thing I'll say is never forget, Les Moonves, the head of CBS in 2015, openly said, Trump is not good for the country, but he's great for us. Jeff Zucker of CNN called him the boss. Trump got $5 billion worth of free media advertising when he was running for office. And if the media did not prop up Trump, he would have never become president. And that includes big tech.
Right. So the fact that he is unable to tweet right now is a hard thing to discuss because, like, proving it negative, I think you just put it better. Both of you did in terms of what it means for us. But moving, what does it mean moving forward? I mean, and why are Republicans still so afraid of being primaried if he doesn't have that platform? He regains the power, and I saw someone smart, and maybe it was Chris Hayes tweeting about this, not because they're afraid of him. This is one answer to this, because they 100% agree with him and want to be like him, Jared.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that has frustrated me to no end is this sort of thing that we do with our political spectrum, where it's like, if somebody does something that we even momentarily agree with, we're like, oh my God, I think they're part of the resistance. Welcome Mitch McConnell to the resistance, because he has suddenly said that Donald Trump is beyond the pale and he's going to take his support from them. The Republican Party is in the midst of this bizarre sort of saltwater taffy sort of pulling. You have the McConnells on one side, by the way, and going back to the tech giants who just decided to rid Trump from their platforms and get the biggest PR, spike that they possibly could have, right? They put Trump in his place when nobody else would. We also have all these corporations that say, the Capitol riot or pooch or whatever we want to call it, we're not going to donate to the Republican Party for a while after donating to them for decades, doing the exact same thing that they've already done. So you have McConnell over here trying to work wonders with, these corporate donors who said, by the way, because in their benevolence, they're like, we're going to pause things for 6 months. And we all three know that the midterms start in 6 months. So thanks, guys. We appreciate that you're going to take a couple of months off or whatever. But then you have, of course, this other part of the Republican Party that is trying so hard to look like Donald Trump. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Boeberts, the Cawthorns, even Huckabee Sanders over here, who basically came out and said she wanted to make Arkansas a theocratic state. You know, when
Did
you
she
actually
say,
look
what
at,
are you talking about that she said that she wanted to make Arkansas a theocratic
have
state?
you not already seen the propaganda that Huckabee Sanders is putting out there?
No,
She couldn't have said it the way you just said it.
Oh, it's incredible.
I'm looking it up.
Her main platform is that she is a Christian who has put like people in their place. Like, it is really bizarre.
She's going to win.
Already. Yeah, and she'll win, and that's going to be her entire platform. And by the way, everybody I just mentioned, if you actually collect them together, they are the rainbow of like the toxic Trump Republican wing of the party. So the whole truth is, you have a lot of people who not only agree with Trump, they saw him as a useful battering ram weapon. And then you have other people who are like, we should not shy away from this. We should dive into it and fill our lungs with filth. I really, truly believe you're going to see the Republican Party act like they don't know who Trump is for about 6 months and then try their hardest to go ahead and wrap themselves around him. I think that's what the future is of the party.
You tweeted this at JY Sexton. And once more, the anti-democratic movement is composed of white supremacists, fascists, white identity evangelicals, people with nothing left but conspiracy theories, hyper-capitalists, and the grifters who see an opportunity to take all of their money. Waj, who did Jared miss in that tweet that makes up the current movement on the right?
No, I think it's right. White Christian supremacy, a counter-majoritarian force, hostile democracy, QAnon conspiracy theorists, and corporations, and grifters. I think in D.C., many of these individuals whom we meet in think tanks or in the green rooms of CNN and MSNBC, the ones who I went on and debate against, they know they're suckers. They know that MAGAs are they're fools. They make fun of them. They mock Trump, but they're like, this is how my bread is buttered. And I see the North Star. And if I want to get paid, this is my ecosystem. So I am now going to jump on it and I'll be more Trump than Trump. So there are opportunists, people like Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio, who will just be a chameleon and change to whatever tune it is. And like people like Nikki Haley, who was a moderate when it was okay to be a quote unquote moderate and take down the Confederate flag. But now she literally wants to run for president. She goes, I got to get good with MAGA because they see me as a rhino. Then you got the Stockholm syndrome, which I think is just a few people who are terrified that Trump from the dark regions of Mar-a-Lago will somehow get platformed again and then haunt them. But I think for most folks, the reality is the following, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, like I tweeted this earlier, I've said this many times, Bobart, Hawley are the present and future of the Republican Party. And people said, Waj, you're crazy. Jared, you're nuts. No, this is just a blip. Lo and behold, the Texas GOP is now promoting QAnon slogans, the Texas GOP. Then you have other GOP houses that are saying, January 6th was a false alarm and it's a conspiracy theory and they're just trying to blame us. Okay. We are living with the death rattle of white supremacy that's become a death march. The future of the GOP is this MAGA QAnon movement. The problem is it runs counter to the McConnells and the money and the corporations that Jared has said has nurtured it, but they thought they could always control Frankenstein the monster. What Trump did is shows no, the monster has escaped the lab. So what we're going to see, and this is the one positive we have is cannibalism. And I'm not talking about Army Hammer. I'm talking about the cannibalism of the old school GOP, like the McConnells and the corporate donors versus the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. And if you see what's happening right now, they're literally eating each other alive behind the scenes. And if Democrats were smart, I would take a playbook from British imperialism and divide and conquer. I would have them eat each other alive and use the crisis right now to win over Americans, be competent on the vaccine rollout, give them a stimulus package, strengthen healthcare, and then you can win in the midterms. If the Democrats
I would just add to that I think what we're looking at right now is sort of Atwaterism reaching its final terminal point. And for anybody who isn't aware of this, Lee Atwater, who was, the white supremacist whisperer to the stars and helped get us, the quote unquote color blindness of Reaganism, they basically market tested for decades how to appeal to racist without saying the racist thing out loud.
Right.
Well, eventually what ends up happening when you do that for decades is it opens a marketing niche for people who are like, I am going to say that racist thing out loud. And suddenly the people are like, I'm glad he tells it like it is, which, by the way, is how you get to Trump or how you get to how open white nationalists who are now running for things and are now talking about conspiracy theories and all of this. There is an opening and the Republican Party is always going to move in that direction. We're even watching Fox News and I thought it was crazy. People were like, oh, Fox News knows that they can't out OANN or Newsmax, OANN and Newsmax. And Fox News is like, watch us. We'll get there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And they are going to get there.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson had My Pillow douche on last night. And it was the most bizarre segment that I'd ever seen aired on Fox News. And that says something. It was super crazy and bizarre. And what the My Pillow guy was saying about a conspiracy about his Twitter, and Tucker Carlson just heard him out.
But go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
I was just going to add one last thing. I'm down in the steel blue state of Georgia, the solidly blue state of Georgia, the liberal paradise of Georgia. And one thing to point out to give people an idea of how this works, Brian Kemp, our governor, has been thoroughly emasculated by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said this person is a traitor. He is completely sold out. He probably took bribes. And I have to tell you, when Brian Kemp runs for re-election, if he was sane, he would say this Trump thing is disgusting. My partners in the Republican Party have been threatened. Their families have been stalked. We have to reject this and find something new. That will not happen. Yeah. He will go further right and try and prove himself to Trump and Trumpists. The Republican Party is not going to come back from that rightward march. It's it's a fait accompli.
It's like Jeff Sessions. How you can be, look at Ted Cruz and Jeff Sessions, who has been more emasculated, ridiculed, mocked, literally, than those two men by Donald Trump. And at the end, they kiss his butt. Like, you don't know where Trump's butt ends and like Ted Cruz's nose.
Yeah, that's always a weird thing. That's always a weird thing to me. Jared, you wrote a whole book about masculinity, and I think that it's
I thought you were going to say I wrote a whole book about how Ted Cruz likes to be emasculated in public. Because, I mean, somebody needs to write it.
Would you?
Have you paid attention? Because it is obvious that he likes picking fights in public that he doesn't intend to win. It's very odd.
The Seth Rogen thing was a disaster for him by any definition of it. It was really, it's got to be bad. But I still really, the point Waj brings up, especially about Ted Cruz, he insulted his wife and his father. Yeah. And there's a very inconsistent thing there where if you're a man, quote, that's the worst kind of insult that you could ever endure. And you don't stand by that kind of thing. And most of us can understand emotionally why you wouldn't. But he's done everything he can to protect Donald Trump. And I just wonder why anybody who might like Ted Cruz would not look at him and be like, wow, you're a real cuck. I mean, I can't believe that you would allow this man to do that. And then you would be nice to him and look past it. It's hard for me.
If Democrats
and there's no parallel. There's nothing in the center, on the left, anywhere where, like, there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, but there's a way. If Democrats wanted to play hardball, you can run on that message. You have to be careful with gender stereotypes. But honestly, we're three men here. We're married. We got kids. Like, what man? What man allows another man to mock his wife and him and his father, and then he sits there and go, thank you, can I have another?
And then, by the way, says all those horrible, Ted Cruz called him a liar and said all these horrible things about Trump at one point, too. So it's not like he isn't on the record as well.
But the logical, it's not necessarily just emotional, but the logical, rational reason why he does that is because he realizes this is where the party is. He nurses these delusional ambitions that he will become president. Fox News still wants that money. They will out Newsmax and OANN, those two. And proof of that in the last week is they've cut their news hours and replaced it with opinion hours and given a plum platform to Mario Bartiromo, who was once respected guys back in the day, but has emerged as a Trump apologist. The cannibalism that I want to talk about, just to give us some hope, is on the DL, Republican corporations and big money are not saying that we're not going to support anyone who shows up on her show, right? So there is this last gasp, this last fight, if you will, for the old school rhinos to maintain some semblance of conservative party. But I'm with Jared. I've been tweeting this for the last 3 years. People thought I was crazy. This is the present future of the conservative movement. It is a counter-majoritarian extremist force. They are not coming back in my lifetime. They're going to go further and further to the right. They're going to radicalize. They're going to weaponize. And if you think I'm wrong, the DHS just today, when we recorded this podcast, has a rare warning that we're going to see an increase in right-wing extremism and violence all across the nation.
Oh, great.
Yep.
I hadn't seen that.
A rare warning just came out.
Well, I remember in 2009, old enough to, when Obama's first Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Janet Napolitano, warned about veterans being radicalized and becoming right-wing domestic terrorists. And she had to retract it. She had to retract that research that DHS found because it wasn't politically correct. To the right, of course, by the way, that you would classify veterans, anybody who served, as being dangerous domestic terrorists. It was.
I have a question, because I didn't check my app today, but what color of a threat is that on the Muslim danger scale?
The Waj.
Because we spent a lot of money, if my mind is correct. I think it was somewhere in the area of $1 trillion and, millions of people. And I want to say last count was over 100 plus countries that we went around fighting the imaginative threat.
Oh, Iraq, your numbers are way off. Iraq alone was $6 trillion. And when it all adds up for healthcare for veterans, it's...
I just want to point out that we created an entire infrastructure to fight an imagined threat and spent trillions of dollars and killed millions. And we destabilized entire regions. But now we have to be like, oh, by the way, I think your neighbor might be a problem.
But you know who caught the Times Square bomber? T-shirt vendor.
Muslim guy, Senegalese immigrant. You know that?
Is that right?
Yep. Senegalese Muslim immigrant is the one who saw the car on fire, called it in, and as a result, they were able to move in and thwart the plot of Faisal Shehzad, the radicalized Pakistani Muslim.
Good call, dude. Great call. All right, let me go back and ask you both another question. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and I'm sure that you don't either. It's the phrase cancel culture.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like to talk about the idea because I think it's dumb. My only thing about cancel culture, what I've been saying, is it's just new words to describe what old words did perfectly well, which were, the old words were, you're fired. You can't work here anymore. Why? You took your dick out at work, so you're fired. You're canceling me? What do you mean? No, you're fired. You're just canceling me. You're just gonna cancel me and destroy me? No, we're firing you. You can go try to get a job somewhere else that is okay with you taking your dick out, or maybe you don't do it there, but right now you're fired from this place. Now,
you are censoring me for airing my racist opinions and being a misogynist and sexually harassing women. Why
I
are you
see
canceling freedoms?
Twitter and Facebook and any other social media platform in the same way. It's your employer. It's a club that you belong to, same as your stupid country club that you belong to. You can be here, but you got to play by our rules. And if you take your dick out and post it, you're fired. You're canceling me. No, fired. Yes, there are a few examples where maybe you looked into somebody's past. I forget that screenwriter. They looked in somebody's past on tweets years ago, and they tried to those things are, we could talk a little bit about that, but that's not A, very common, and B, that guy got a reprieve. That's not really a thing. What they're referring to as cancel culture now is taking Twitter away from Trump and Don Bongino, whoever else that they've taken away from. They're calling it that. It's preposterous to me. Like I said, that's the end of my rant. Jared, your thoughts on how this is being used right now and weaponized on the right, and really also firing people up, and has been for years, as it being a top issue to be concerned with.
Yeah, but it's just perceived persecution.
Yeah,
it's people who are in power and have all of the influence and leverage being able to make people around them afraid that something could possibly happen. I mean, it's the exact same idea that an immigrant is going to come and take their job. It's the exact same thing. They're creating a situation, an imagined idea in the head of their supporters to keep them from actually focusing on the things they actually should be pissed off about, the things they actually should be frustrated about, the things that they should be focused on. Instead, it's like, oh, if you're not careful, you might be fired from the Orange Julius because you took your dick out. Or,
Orange
you can't.
Oh, that's an old school throwback. That's an 80s mall reference.
I appreciate it.
By the way, that's such an old reference. There's not even, it's so old, you could take your dick out back then.
That's how they would say
in the 1980s. That was part of it. That was probably on the classified ad for the Orange Julius. Do you have the ability?
What a pull!
This is the one place left in America that you can take your penis out. Come. And also, literally and figuratively.
And by the way, it's called a smoothie. Orange Julius. Stop it.
And by the way, get a Blizzard also. Also buy a Blizzard.
That's ice cream.
I cannot wait. And because one of the things that's happening in all of this is really important. And part of the reason why we're in the situation that we are is because we live in a country where even corporations that don't believe in liberalness or wokeness or diversity or inclusivity, they all know, going back to Atwater and Reaganism and all that they have to say that they do. They have to pretend that they do. They have to project that they do. And so it's created this perceived persecution among the powerful and the wealthy who believe that they're losing everything and they've lost this culture war and that it's just a day until they're put in camps. But meanwhile, we now have a group of people, and we're joking about this thing where it's like the advertisement, this is the last place you can take your dick out. That's basically what some of these businesses are doing.
Right.
Like some of them are like, we're not just a coffee company. We are a fascist coffee company. Like, come here and work here. Like, we're not a PC pillow company. Get that. And really, that's the honest to God late term thing with all of this. That's what Trump is. Trump didn't care about any of this stuff. He's like, give me your money. Yeah. And I'll say that I do. It's just all a big part of the perceived persecution scam, which, by the way, Josh Hawley is riding like a wave. Yeah. And people need to realize that he is doing this very meticulously, and he is an expert at it already.
Oh, interesting that you're giving him that kind of credit. That's concerning to me, that you're recognizing how well he's playing the game. Waj, what would you add to Jared and my cancel culture rant?
Two things. Number one, it's accountability. Those in power do not want to be held accountable for the abuses of their power. And we know many of these individuals, I could tell you in media and publishing, people are freaked out. It's the old boys club, the old white boys club. And it's this perceived loss of power, this cultural anxiety that affects even them. And one person told me is when Bennett resigned is, the black reporters all ganged up against him and now they're coming after all of us. I'm like, you're fine. You make like $500,000. All of you guys are fine, right?
Who is this? Bennett?
James Bennett was the New York
James Bennett, the head of the editorial page of New York Times.
So it's like a tight club. They're all buddies. They're all friends. It's a small group. And then the reverberations from the Bennett firing led to the Harper letter. Because the Harper letter, that freaking stupid, reckless letter, that right when it came out, I'm like, you guys have no idea what you've unleashed. You've given talking points to the right. Mm-hmm. This is going to come from the 2020 election. This is what I said is going to replace political correctness. Is like what you said, Pete. It's like a remake. It's the political correctness myth that was used and abused successfully for 2 decades by the right wing. You can't tell it like it is anymore. They suppress your freedoms. Men can't be men. We can't be racist. We can't slap a woman on the ass. You can't be casually sexist. You can't be homophobic. They're taking away our freedoms. When I went and talked to Trump supporters before he was elected, the one thing that they repeatedly said is he's politically incorrect. He keeps it real. Now, fast forward to the 2020 Republican National Convention. Everyone said cancel culture. And right then I said, done. The Pandora's box is open. Political correctness is dead. Yeah. It's been replaced by quote unquote cancel culture.
Right.
And now you hear it all the time. Cancel culture. And who is the irony and the hypocrisy? That's the thing about white supremacy, which is so wild, is that those in power think they're the victims. Perpetual victimhood. Who is the king of cancel culture, gents? Donald Trump. I'll give you one word. Kaepernick. I'll give you another word. Goodyear tires. Right? I'll give you another word. The Georgia governor. Right? He's canceled right now. Kemp. Literally anyone we don't like is canceled. How about this? Critical race theory. Literally, they tried to cancel.
They did. I just had a friend of mine in the federal government talk to us about how you're not allowed to use the word systemic racism
or white fragility or multiculturalism. Who's trying to cancel multiculturalism? Yeah. Pompeo.
The word on the street as an academic is that there are academic institutions that are starting to ask which professors and which teachers are starting to talk about things like race, masculinity, privilege, oppression. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about that like policing things. It's projection. They want to shut people up, and so they say that other people want to shut them up. Yes. And then meanwhile, by the way, the most impotent thing of all, I thought that this was the perfect encapsulation of the modern Republican Party. On January 6th, before a horde of these people attacked the legislative branch and the vice president of the United States of America and intended to kill massive amounts of people. Before those people went off to do that, Donald Trump Jr., one of the main instigators of this entire situation, stood up in front of all of them and was like, isn't it some bullshit that I don't get more likes on Instagram? Like, that's what this is about. It's people who think that they should be more powerful and more wealthy, and they think that something is keeping them from that besides their own mediocrity.
Or how about Butthead, Matt Gaetz? He said the same thing. He was whining that he lost Twitter followers. Remember that?
Anybody who was whining that they lost Twitter followers after the Twitter purge, who wrote, it might have been one of you, something about like these guys are telling on themselves about who was following them. It's because who was following them, they were being, their accounts were being terminated because they were crazy Q people, I think.
Yeah, violent insurrectionists, conspiracy theorists, QAnon spreaders.
Yeah.
But even the priority, right? Like,
I didn't lose any Twitter followers. I felt pretty good.
I gained Twitter followers, which means we're on the right side of history. But think about it. Like, just think about priorities, right? Because Jared's right. 5 people have died. It was a violent insurrection. The U.S. Capitol was overrun for the first time since 1814, right? They tried to overthrow a free and fair democratic election. And Matt Gaetz several times complained about, I'm losing Twitter followers. Wah.
How do we look forward, gentlemen, to in the next 2 years? What can and should Democrats do as a reaction to this? Let's start with the word filibuster, but you're not allowed to use the word filibuster while talking about it. Waj, you can replace it with another word. You could describe it differently, but you can't say that word to talk about what it means and what you think Democrats should do about it.
Dems have power. Dems have the majority. Dems have mandate. They need to flex their power for once. They need to bring a knife to a knife fight, not a policy paper, because Mitch McConnell's always going to bring a bazooka. You use the procedural. There's a procedural game that you can use. You can learn from the Republicans. If you don't have the majority, if you can't get 2/3, okay. You use the reconciliation process, but you also do a better job in convincing the people that it is in their interest that in order to get things done, like a stimulus package, expanded healthcare, infrastructure, climate change reform, then you have to support Democrats in the procedures that they are pursuing to get that done. And then you put the onus and the blame upon the Republican minority. And furthermore, you flex your power and you investigate, you make committees, you issue subpoenas, and you get rid of or you silence some of these extremists like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Bobart, right? So I want the Democrats to use the mandate that is given to them to flex their power and to think like a Republican for once, and to attach it to very popular proposals that will win over the majority, and then tell people, just like Republicans say, we want to give you $2,000, but McConnell won't let us. We want to give you health care, but Republicans won't want us. We want to take on domestic extremism, but Republicans won't let us. That's why you have forced us Republicans to engage in a nuclear option. And this is when you flex and you can help people to have one shot. They have 2 years.
Same question, Jared. What should Democrats do? What should they do about filibuster? You can't use the word. Well done, by the way, Waj.
Thank you.
Can we change? What do you guys think? I was just talking to Barry Ritholtz, a friend of mine. Was a finance economics guy, and he said we should stop calling it stimulus package and call it rescue package. And I like even better, I made this up, business rescue package. You like that?
I like that.
All right.
Small business.
No, because you want to. They talk about small business, but they don't really care about Mike's Orange Julius in the mall.
They should, though. My God, they really should. We got to make sure Mike's stand works. Well, I'll just start first and foremost. The only language that a bully understands is to be punched in the nose. That's it. And the Republicans are bullies. They have run roughshod over the legislative process for decades now because the Democratic Party has been so terrified of being called liberal, socialist, radical, communist, any of those things. And I do have to say that one of the most impressive things of the past couple of years, I live in Georgia. And let me tell you, I'm still shocked when I turn on the TV and I don't see ads for the special election. The only thing that Perdue and Loeffler said They didn't have any plans. They didn't have any goals. They didn't have anything. They just said, these are radical socialist that you can't allow in. And they won. Because here's the thing. Nobody cares about those labels anymore. They're hollow. People want something done. People want something to move. Democrats need to get real and actually exercise power. They need to actually realize that government is about getting things done, as opposed to cowering in a corner from one label or another. So I think Waj is exactly right. You have to act like you are serious about this thing, or in 2 years, you will not have power anymore. And you will probably have a Senate and a Congress that is sufficiently Republican. And we're going to spend 2 years impeaching Biden probably 3 or 4 times over. But they have a moment here. And by the way, this entire pandemic, this entire economic situation, the economy is in a free fall and could crater at any given moment. This is the moment where you can actually start to make changes. And the Democratic Party needs to understand that not only is it necessary, but those changes would be incredibly popular. And that's the thing, is Democrats need to stop. You know, for decades now, they've been aiming all of their policy and all of their rhetoric at an quote unquote independent voter in Dayton, Ohio, who's afraid of civil rights, you know, and they need to realize that that's not where the middle is anymore. And that's not where the opportunity is. We have a populist window that they can run a truck through, a Mack truck through, and they need to recognize that now that Trump's out of the way, they can do it.
And also it'll help them, right? Like if you give DC statehood, you get 2 senators. You give Puerto Rico, you know, let them have their self-determination. But if they choose statehood, that's 2 more, right? If you kill the filibuster, you can have a transformational presidency, number one, that actually will help millions of Americans, but also allow Democrats to flex. You should bum rush nominations. There should be confirmations like every day. Like Biden should just stamp, right? You know, there should be hopefully a young Supreme Court justice should come in. They should talk to the 9th Supreme Court justice, like, hey, maybe one of you guys needs to retire. I mean, you could really be bold here. And, you know, I know Biden wants unity. It's an honorable goal, but you can't unify with counter-majoritarian extremists who want to burn down the House.
I want to point out real fast, just really, really quickly. Sure. The Republican Party is historically unpopular right now.
That's right.
Nobody likes them. They hate them. The only way that they win is via gerrymandering and disenfranchising. This is important because Trump has exposed that there is a massive problem with the Republican Party. The Democratic Party needs to stop saying, you know what, bald eagles, fireworks, everything is going to be fine. Don't worry about this stuff. Actually call the Republican Party what it is. Call it the problem that it is and say, you know what, we need to fix this thing. It's unfair how things have been. Here's how we're going to do it. And by the way, DC statehood and Puerto Rico statehood is absolutely at the top of that list. And be like, this is an existential problem we have to deal with, and actually talk to people in a reasoned, mature way. I think that'll pay dividends.
The thing that nobody seems to be able to get around, though, is how do you take that one senator, specifically Joe Manchin in West Virginia, and convince him to do what needs to be done for everything that you just described? And I mean, I just don't know what they could give him to do.
Sinema.
And also the Arizona Senator, Kirsten Sinema, seems to also be not keen on overturning the rule that requires 66 senators versus 51. How do you... Any idea on how that dynamic, on what pressure could be put on, what incentives could be given to these senators to get them to buy in with the rest of the Democrats?
Listen, this isn't going to be popular, and there's going to be people who hear this and they're going to sigh and roll their eyes. But I'm being honest here. We're talking about the actual application of power. That's important. That's what we're having a discussion about. Yeah. Pork. Give them something.
That's right.
Put something in their states. Give them a monorail. I hear they're all the rage. Give them something. Do something in those states. And I'm
Joe Manchin, and I'm bringing West Virginia monorail. Monorail. Anybody in? Anybody here? Where is everybody?
Give them something. And then I'm telling you, Manchin has shown that he's not just a weather vane. He is in this for whatever it can get him. Yeah. Give him something.
Yeah. Give him something. Give Sinema something. Have Manchin, Sinema go to the people of West Virginia, Arizona, and say, I tried to unify. I tried to reconcile. But the Republicans are standing in the way of me giving you health care. And you guys elected me to give you health care. And the only way that I can do it is to do this. I don't want to do it. Oh, but by the way, we also got you a monorail. And have Joe Biden. I don't care what they say. Have Joe Biden go to Arizona. Have Kamala go to West Virginia. Put on some like parade. make West Virginia and Arizona seem like the two greatest states of the United States. Let other people whine and complain for a bit. Who cares? Manchin and Sinema know they have power. They know they're vulnerable. They got a couple of years left. So you give them what they want and you extract their vote. The one positive is Manchin usually does side with the party on the big issues. You just have to help him convince his base that he tried everything he could to be the moderate. But the other side wouldn't let him get you that stimulus package. And you make that narrative case, Joe Biden stands next to him, praises him, gives him the monorail, he'll sign off.
Should open some kind of renewable energy factory in West Virginia that employs thousands and thousands of people and just make those coal miners turn that job down. Like, this is a great job, benefits for your family. And you always talk about this, Jared, on your podcast and on Twitter. Give them something. You were here earlier talking about it, something effective, something that they can tangibly. All right, give them a new awesome shiny job that pays them more than they got paid underground, above ground, and doesn't have all the health concerns and is actually not polluting the environment. And that's my idea.
Take credit for it. Look, Trump was really good at taking credit for shit he didn't even do.
Yeah.
And Democrats are terrible at that. Like, it's a messaging problem also. And this is where I agree with AOC, is that if you are vulnerable to right-wing attacks, that is your problem. Why are you vulnerable to right-wing attacks where they're calling you a socialist, where they're calling Biden a socialist, which is hilarious, right? So you have to punch back in the face against this right-wing messaging machine, which is very successful, create simple messages, amplify it, take control of it, parrot it, celebrate it, go to West Virginia and Arizona, give them something, take the photo up, have Biden hold Manchin's hand and Sinema's hand, and give them that orange Julius that they really want.
That's 3 times. So here at the end, I want to just ask you what you guys think of the Biden administration so far. First of all, the obvious breath of fresh air in terms of certain norms returning, like the White House press briefing, Jen Psaki. I think everybody, generally speaking, thinking she's a brilliant woman, doing a great job there. But all the way up and down in terms of who's running the show, the chief of staff, the president himself, the vice president, and this historic diverse cabinet that he's brought in. How do you see the first week? What are you happy about in terms of returning? And how do we learn how to be a little bit more patient? Because I want to snap my fingers and have it all change back. Specifically, have there be a national plan for getting Americans vaccinated. But we do have to give them some grace. I think it's fair to say, Jared.
Well, I'll just say first and foremost, it's hard after a week of a presidency to really start to give grades out. But I will say this. Just in terms of messaging and propaganda, the Biden administration is second to none. The ability that they have had to sort of embrace this new beginning, a sigh of relief. We have this idea of renewal. If people want to find hope here, the hope is that this is not some sort of second-rate clown show. They know how to talk to people. They know how to embody it. They know what they're doing. I mean, obviously, it's hard after the guy who ran the Orange Julius stand into the ground not to come in and look like a great, person. But this is obviously a top-rate A+ messaging operation, which is hard for Democrats. I mean, if anybody remembers what happened when Clinton got into office, I mean, it was immediately obvious that they had no idea how to sell themselves to the public. And I think what we've seen already is a real competent A+ show.
Waj, what do you think? Good point about not necessarily being able to give a rating after a week on the job for almost any job, but nonetheless, I'm asking.
I mean, there's no both sides here. When people say both sides are the same, when they said that about Clinton and Trump, and when they say that about Biden and Trump, it just makes me lose my mind. Because what you already saw is the end of the Muslim ban. What you already saw is the end of the zero tolerance policy. What you already saw is the end of the transgender military ban. What you saw is a president who actually acknowledges climate change and is trying to do his best to reverse the immense damage that Trump did to the progress that we made under the Obama administration. What you're seeing is competency, professionalism. And what you're also seeing is an administration that realizes that they have power and they have opportunity through crisis. I hate to talk like a Politico here, but you have 3 crises here. Coronavirus pandemic, the quote-unquote ongoing, never-ending white supremacist racial violence pandemic, and the economic crises, right? And so you see 3 crises that the Trump administration has utterly failed at, which has led to over 400,000 deaths, a recession, and ultimately led to a violent insurrection that killed 5 people. And you see Biden with his messaging and his policies targeted. We are actually on target to undo the damage that they did with vaccines. The Trump administration could have given you these many vaccines. They effed up. We're going to give you X amount of vaccines. Look at that. We've already gone 16% of the population vaccinated.
The other thing that the Biden administration, I think, I'm surprised that the Trump administration didn't think of this, but they're offering everybody who does get a vaccine for 1 week only a Build-A-Bear gift certificate, which I thought that had run out of business anyway. But I'm surprised that Trump didn't think to give something in addition to get a vaccine. But that's pretty cool.
A Trump bear. No, it's like smart, right? And look at the people. Fauci, unleashed.
Yeah.
Everyone's relieved, right?
Yeah.
Slavic. Ronald Klain, Vivek Murthy, right? And so you're seeing people are breathing a sigh of relief. They're seeing motion and movement on a pandemic that's killed over 400,000. They're seeing motion and movement on a stimulus package, hopefully. And they're seeing a president openly say on Inauguration Day in his speech, tackling white supremacy. That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge. And it's a lot. And it's not just words. I think it's really important. I think more than anything else, when it comes to both kind of saving democracy and fighting white supremacy, the only thing that matters is the vote. We can talk about economic, health, and education opportunities for people that have been living in poverty or being discriminated, marginalized communities as much as we want. And all those policies are interesting and important to talk about. But the vote, the thing that Dr. King and John Lewis and so many other civil rights heroes fought for in the 60s was gutted by the Supreme Court. The House has passed it. Once, they'll pass it again in this Congress. The Senate has the opportunity to pass it. Joe Biden has said this is a top priority for him. Restoring the Voting Rights Act. How important is that, Jared, and how serious of an action is it more than just words in a State of the Union speech?
It's massive. I mean, we have so many, and by the way, Waj nailed it. Those are the 3 major crises. But if we were to sit here and try and list all of the crises in this country that have been ongoing for the past few years, we wouldn't finish.
Right. Like,
it's a big knotted thing. And one of the problems is a voting crisis in this country. It has been systematically undermined. Like, we have reached the point where people are kept from voting constantly for no good reason. People are disenfranchised, gerrymandering, obviously. But the Voting Rights Act is first and foremost an admittance that everything is not right in this country, that there is an actual problem and that there is a systemic actual discrimination at play that has to be dealt with. And even saying the word white supremacy, I don't know about everybody else, like not just from a rhetoric standpoint, but just hearing it. Yeah. was seismic.
Absolutely. Great point. Yes.
And once you start actually talking about this stuff, you can actually start dealing with it. And the Voting Rights Act is absolutely, it should be at the top of everyone's priority.
The 3 of us and many others have been talking about white supremacy for over a decade and been not taken seriously until very recently. And it's so important. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. All right. Last question. What are you happy about? What's something to be happy about in your personal life, in the world? Waj, do you have anything? I told you to come with this beforehand.
I am happy that Trump lost. People might call me a naive optimist. That's fine. I think the fact that 80 million people came out during a pandemic, during immense voter suppression, during threats, during conspiracy theories, and voted out Donald Trump and voted in Joe Biden and our first Black and South Asian female vice president, Kamala Harris, is a huge deal. I think all 3 of us, from what I'm hearing, is we're pragmatists, and we realize that 1 to 2 weeks you won't see immediate change, but we've seen change, and you've seen a change in tone and tenor in the country. There's systemic structural changes that still need to happen, but I'll take wins where I can. I'm also happy the fact that there's a pandemic that's killed over 400,000 people, and despite all of our challenges, we all have challenges. We're alive, right? We're alive. That's a blessing. The fact that if your wife and your kids are alive during a pandemic that has taken away so many lives, you should wake up every day and say, you know what? I have so many problems today, but at least I get a chance to breathe.
Yeah, my parents got vaccinated last week, and I've been talking about how happy that made me because, of course, those were the 2 people closest to me that I was most concerned about getting vaccinated. So, Jared, what do you got?
Well, I mean, Waj took all the good answers, but I'll just go ahead and throw out there in terms of like immediate stuff. I have to tell you, I am just absolutely thrilled watching this weird populist invasion of the stock market, because what that actually tells me is that all of these systems of isolated power for the powerful and the wealthy, people are starting to understand them. And when people start to understand those systems, they can start to actually bring them down and do real damage to them. And I think what we're realizing is that people are getting more and more information. Information is becoming more and more democratized. I think that's really hopeful. I really, truly do.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And Waj has just brought his child and put her
I just talk about real life stuff as this beautiful child comes onto my Zoom call.
Can the child hear us?
So you know what happened? My daughter Nuseba interrupted us because her hearing aids fell off, and she's so good now that she said, "Baba, put my hearing aids on." So I'm grateful for the fact that, I mean, you want me to be happy about something? The fact that we got brand new hearing aids for my daughter because she lost some of her hearing through chemo, and the fact that it's through my wife, we have insurance that allowed her to get a new fitting to put hearing aids in her ear, and now she can hear. So these are like the victories of life, man. And I think during the pandemic, if this wasn't a pandemic, I'd say that people are like, "Oh, Waj, you're soft." But I think,
you take it where you can get it.
Yeah. I mean, during a pandemic that's killed over 400,000, there's a lockdown. It's okay to be soft and tender and realize that, oh, my daughter is alive and she can hear, and my parents got vaccinated. This is a huge win. This is a huge win. We can exhale. We can smile for a moment. I think that's okay. I think it's something we should celebrate.
Well, seeing her a moment ago, it still has me smiling. That was awesome. That was a great guest starring appearance. I never met her. Wish she was still here because she was so much easier to look at than you.
I know, man. Cuteness always works.
That was really funny. It was like when she came, like everything changed, and then when she left, it changed back.
I mean, like Pete, usually guys should have seen Pete's face. It was like, oh, ooh, make it like faces, and Jared was trying to like make a serious point.
It was exactly what happened.
And I put her on mute. I'm like, Jared's talking about stocks. This is important. And me and my Pete's like, baby, look at me.
That's exactly what happened. Thanks for peeling back the curtain.
Content. That's better content. Let's just be real. That's better content.
Thank you, gentlemen, both for joining me again. So great. We gotta get the band bet together more often. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, wasn't it great? Did you like it? I hope you liked it. I really very much loved it and enjoyed it, and would love to hear from you. Always do. And hopefully I'll convince you to sign up for a subscription. If you haven't already, I'm really overdue in reading new subscribers' names. Got a bunch of them in the last couple. I don't think read in 2 weeks. And so I got to give credit and shout outs to all of the new subscribers. Thank you so much for supporting the program. Hope to see you tonight at the Zoom Hangout. Don't forget to sign up for a recurring donation at givewell.org, givewell.org/stand-up. Go to the podcast, select podcast and select stand-up so we get credit for it, and support givewell.org with a recurring donation if you can. And that's it. I hope to see you tonight. I love you. I thank you. You're not alone ever. Check in on the Discord platform, which I haven't really in a couple days. I miss you guys, but I'll see you tonight. Goodbye. Take it away, John Carroll.
Stand up, stand up. I think you're driving wheels really leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. We got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, 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 stand up.
Thank you, John Carroll, and hello, show enders. I always love to leave a nugget for those of you who listen all the way to the very end through the great song right up until the show ender. And if you listen to the very end, you're part of the secret community within the community that brings absolutely no extra benefits. Today's show ender is one of the most accidentally hilarious moments in the old SiriusXM show, when I welcomed astronaut and legend Buzz Aldrin to the program, and he took a comment made by my former producer, Chris Hossell, the wrong way.
We can do it on 0.5%?
No, and that's what our budget is, right?
So would we have to send a Mars vehicle? We'd have to launch it from space? Is that what you're saying? It'd have to it would make more sense to launch from a low Earth orbit than
Or the moon.
Look, I don't answer guitar questions. Please don't try and tell me. I'm not telling anything. I'm asking.
The book is No Dream is Too High, Life Lessons from a Man Who Walked.
Yeah, that was me trying to get out of that awkward moment. Oh, that was one of the greatest. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye.